What's a gross fact about a common food we eat? I did a lot of IT-related contract work for a couple of years, which required me going to a lot of fast food places and even higher-end restaurants all around Central Texas, doing things like running cable, working on their PAS system, replacing batteries in their alarm systems, and replacing computers. I've seen everything they got going on back there. I'm never eating at a Long John Silver's again. Salami and many other Italian deli meats are not cooked. They are cured. Raw meat is ground up and blended with spices and binders, then it's loaded into a casing and hung to dry in a curing chamber. Curing chambers are very precise pieces of equipment that keeps the humidity and temperature in the perfect range to encourage mold growth on the outside of the casings. So yeah, salami is moldy uncooked meat. I've worked as a seafood processor in Alaska for many years, and have worked the line where you pull out parasites with little tweezers. My hands get so cold I couldn't get a hold of them and end up wrecking the fillet. That's still better than cleaning bloodlines though. I always looked like a survivor of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre after doing that job for 16 hours straight, and no matter how hard I try not to, some salmon blood always gets in my mouth. American milk chocolate often contains small but measurable amounts of butyric acid, either as a byproduct of how the chocolate is made or added to it on purpose as a preservative. Butyric acid is also produced by human gut bacteria, and is one of the noxious/smelly/foul-tasting components in vomit. The amount of butyric acid in American chocolate is small enough, and Americans are usually so accustomed to it that we don't really notice. But, to non-Americans, especially Europeans, apparently, American chocolate literally tastes like puke. Somebody else mentioned this. Personally, I'm fine with Hershey bars and I love milk chocolate, despite everyone I know hating it. Not an exaggeration. But now I'm curious, what are some European chocolate brands readily available in the States I should try? Edit. Du Toblerone, Lind, Ghirardelli, seems like it's under Lind, qualify as European chocolate, at least in style. Edit 2. Thanks for the responses everyone. I have a long list of chocolate to try now. Need to up my exercise routine. I'm afraid I'll get fat now lol. Also people are telling me Ghirardelli is from San Francisco etc., but I wanted to know if they made European-style chocolate, seeing as they're owned by a Swiss company and started by an Italian-born man it seems. Englishman here. I went to LA in about 2001 and as a big fan of chocolate I bought about 5 different bars in a small shop. All of them were inedible. They didn't really taste of chocolate, just really pukey, and I remember a Hershey's bar that both my girlfriend and I had a faint taste of what dog shit smells like. If you like American chocolate, I'm 50-50 on whether you would adore European chocolate or actually dislike it as you're so familiar with the American variety. My main thought was just how insanely different it was. I'd never met a bar I didn't love before, let alone could not stomach another bite from. This always gets me. People learn about this and get all snooty about their chocolate. People that probably don't hate the chocolate to begin with. Fun fact about butyric acid: it is named after butter because it is found in butter. While it is found in the stomach and does have an unpleasant odor in high concentrations, the taste is notably buttery and pleasant at lower concentrations. Butter, milk, buttermilk, yogurt, cheese, any dairy you enjoy has large amounts of it. Not gross, but unexpected. Nearly every farm food, animal and plant, is not a species or variety of animal or plant that existed in nature. We created almost all of them. There are no species of cattle in the wild whose cows produce so much milk that their udders are large enough that they're practically immobile, and can't run from predators. There are no species of sheep that grow wool to the extent that a human needs to shear them to avoid becoming crippled. Nearly every fruit we grow is a man-made variety that descended from a much lower sugar version. You would have a hard time finding a piece of produce in a grocery store that is truly a natural variety. Mushrooms and some root vegetables are among the few. I grow wild strawberries. The size difference between wild strawberries and domesticated strawberries is huge. The wild strawberries I grow are smaller than wild raspberries I've picked. They are also smaller than some of the blueberries you get in packs. I think the wild ones taste a little better, but they just don't seem worth the effort to pick. Also, some fungi soak up every harmful chemical from soil ... and then you eat it. Some even thrive from radioactivity absorbing ... In my country, few years after Chernobyl, people just stopped foraging mushroom, which is normally a national sport. One must be careful about the source of mushrooms, not just about their non-poisonous. That is sort of true, and not always. For example, in the Netherlands and Belgium and parts of Germany, the common white button mushrooms are grown on substrate. This substrate is processed straw from horse stables, so we'll have shit and piss. However, the substrate is not the top layer. That add a thin layer of, to my knowledge, dirt. In Poland, for example, they don't have as much density in horse stables, so they use regular farmer processed straw as a substrate plus a thin layer of dirt. Mushrooms are either picked and cut from the root with a knife, or machine harvested. This will depend on what they will be used for. Both won't include the substrate layer. I don't know the case elsewhere, but basically the specks of dirt on your mushrooms are just dirt. Because of the lack of available moisture and honey, it's one of the few foods that doesn't really spoil. Archaeologists will occasionally discover casks of still edible honey in Egyptian tombs and such that have been sealed for hundreds and thousands of years. Also, for tax purposes, the USDA classifies honey as raw meat. I've tried it. It wasn't really any different from other protein powder experiences I've had. I liked it better than rice protein, and it works pretty well if you are making protein bars or smoothies. I thought about getting a terrarium and heat lamp, raising some of the little guys up and grinding them in the powder, but I think I'm too soft-hearted. I would end up giving them names and backstories and then feel awful for killing them. As Poster already mentioned, this is only the case in some countries. Australia, New Zealand, UK, and I believe most of Europe don't use bone char, so sugar from these places are vegan. I get gotcha'd by non-vegan family and friends all the time on things like this. I really wish people would realize the world / equals the USA. It happens with fries from fast food chains too. Almost everywhere other than the USA they are vegan, but one article saying the US ones are not. And that's the first thing that shows up on Google, so people just assume that's the same worldwide. Not in the US, though. It is verboten. Although they are harmless and non-parasitic, leaving eels in vinegar is considered objectionable in the United States and is not permitted in vinegar destined for American consumers. 4. Manufacturers normally filter and pasteurize their product prior to bottling, destroying the live bacterial and yeast culture that these nematodes require for sustenance. I was drinking some Summersby cider and noticed that it contains cochineal, a red dye made from tiny insects. This doesn't bother me very much, but considering most people will drink it straight from the can, why would they put any coloring at all, let alone one made from bugs? It's not only vegans that might object to drinking literal bug juice. Did you notice the ingredient, beef lips? When I read the ingredients of a can of Vienna sausage out loud in front of a group that our friend just finished, I laughed so hard, I think it damaged our friendship. It turned out he had been conned and set up by an incredibly gross, repugnant person we worked with, and when I realized that it caused further damage to our friendship, I think university can really screw with some people. The coffee beans you grind for breakfast are allowed by the FDA to have an average of 10 milligrams or more animal poop per pound. As much as 4% to 6% of beans by count are also allowed to be insect-infested or moldy. As you sprinkle black pepper on your morning eggs, try not to think about the fact you may be eating more than 40 insect fragments with every teaspoon, along with the smidgen of rodent hair. You know, all those pictures of food people have taken over the years since that fad started. It's all various forms of shit now. Piles and piles of shit, just sitting and or floating somewhere, no longer the beautiful image they shared with the world, but the result that always comes after. Fig trees only bear fruit thanks to something called a fig wasp. The wasps are born inside the figs, and when the females hatch, they crawl out to find a new fig in which they can lay their own eggs. During this journey, they pick up pollen from the fig's male flowers and carry this into their new fig nest. But it's a one-way trip. The females die after laying their eggs, and the males who hatch inside the fig are stuck there too. After mating with the young females and chivalrously chewing exit holes for them, they're too tucked out to leave, and they don't have wings, anyway. If you go out to eat at a place that pays minimum wage, don't expect your food to be super clean. No, we don't drop it on the floor, but they don't wash their hands often back there, or change their gloves. But then again, do you wash your hands before eating finger foods? Expect the same quality as if you were cooking at home. So, you know Nutella, right? But did you know that there is an alternate recipe which is never used commercially? I hope. Which uses some sort of larva, I think. I can't find it. I knew it years ago, and you cannot, apparently, tell the difference from taste. There's also a difference between American and European Nutella. American Nutella is produced in Canada and is more oily. The flavor is also apparently less intense and has almost no traces of hazelnut. The European version comes from Italy and has a richer flavor and is thicker. If you want to try it, apparently Uncle Guy's Peas in the New York area sells the imported version from Italy. Here's a review of both Nutellas, an experience report. If you want to look for yourself, don't worry, it mentions not the larva thing. Artificial colors usually have a number next to them in the ingredients, which is a code for what they are derived from. If it's red and it says color E120, it is made from cochineal carmine, or simply carmine, E120. The red coloring that is obtained from the dried bodies of the female insect Dactylopius coccus costa, the cochineal insect. You'll find it in a lot of pasta sauce, tomato pastes, yogurt and even Skittles. Edit, I've got no problem with eating it, as me tester I don't think anyone should, but I still think it's something people should know. A chemical compound used in vanilla flavoring and scents comes from the anal glands of beavers. Castrum is a substance that is produced by a beaver's castor sac, which is found between the pelvis and the base of the tail. The vanilla scent is often attributed to the animal's diet of bark and leaves. I have worked producing flour and had to quit because our boss didn't allow time for cleaning. There were so many bugs going into our product daily it made me feel sick for our customers. Also, knowing one of our suppliers had problems with rats but we used his corn anyway made me question why I worked there. Aging meat, most often beef, is a fancy way of saying that you're allowing it to partially rot and mold over in order to help add flavor to it and break down the meat's connective tissue. It's done under heavily controlled conditions to keep the meat from spoiling though. Think about that the next time you bite into that juicy steak. The meat used is trim. If you have a whole rump that you are cutting into 1 pound rump steaks and you get to the last cut and it weighs 1.2 pounds, you cut the 0.2 pounds off and throw it in the trim bucket for ground beef, sausages, etc. Almost everything in animals we consume is edible. Burden tells a story in one of his books about a meal he had in a village in Europe where the only part of the animal that wasn't used as an ingredient was the bladder, which was inflated, tied off and used as a soccer ball by the kids. Blood, bones, intestines, etc. were all used. My BF refuses to try bone marrow, but I've been utterly hooked on it ever since I came back, ravenous, from an epic hike a few years back. I bought a whole rotisserie chicken and gnawed right through the cartilage into a tender leg bone. It felt restorative. I feel feral when I can gnaw on a good rotisserie chicken. My dad once had a job at a well-known British brand's sugar factory, one of his early jobs before his apprentice in the late 1960s, and saw how they made it. Put him off from using granulated sugar ever again. Sugar isn't white, It's brown. They get it white by soaking it in industrial bleach and then rinsing it off a few times. Even then there is still bleach residue in the sugar. Historically, this isn't the case anymore. Due to how castrum is produced, it's incredibly impractical to milk beavers' castor gland on a global industrial scale. Only 292 pounds is harvested annually compared to the 20 million pounds of vanilla flavoring. Most artificial vanilla is synthetic vanillin, the same chemical made by natural vanilla. Castrum is mainly used in perfumes over food. It's not impossible, but with the difficulty of gathering the ingredients, it's highly unlikely the regular consumer will ever try it in vanilla flavoring. Used to do medical research that involved thin sectioning various tissues, and I got to be a pretty good histologist. One day for fun we froze and sliced a bit of hot dog we had from the plaque shack. In no particular order: striated muscle tissue, CNS including brain, bits of bone, vascular fragments, virtually all organs, eye, skin, cartilage, and testicle, and a few bits of insects which I'm guessing were flies. To have cow milk, the female cows are forcefully impregnated over and over again so that they can continue to give birth to calves in order to continue to keep producing milk. And when the calves are born, they're taken away from the mother to either raise them to be dairy calves, raise them to be slaughtered to meat, or killed young for veal. They're still considered vegan. No wasp is actually being eaten. It has been digested. Just like if you were to eat fried chicken, you're not also eating what that animal digested and absorbed. The wasps and figs have a symbiotic relationship. They have evolved to do this. The female will die once inside and will be absorbed no matter what. Her babies will burrow their way out to freedom. No exploitation or unnecessary death is happening, so they are considered to be vegan. Smile. When you eat meat, Samyun's throat was slit open. If you drink dairy, Samyun's kid was taken away and got locked inside a tiny caged shed. If you eat bacon, Samyun's baby was smashed either with the hammer or picked up by their legs and smashed into a heavy object. Blunt force trauma. Not only gross, but pure evil and savage. A lot of gummies, bears, worms, jellos are made from cattle bones, hide and pig skin. Chopped up parts are thrown into a large pot and then boiled down. Here is a video, but be warned it might be a little much. https://www.google.com/app/s/www.thesson.co.uk/living/1661464/ This brutal video about how gelatin is made will probably put you off eating sweets forever. /app/edit bones. Times, we smile at each other understandingly as Hawkeye makes his entrance. We roll our eyes at Frank, and finally at the same time, we dip our Sammys into our soups and lay upon our shameful mountain of crumbs and leave our soup bowls beside the bed as we gently fade into the first hour. Then repeat 23 times. And the salt from those tears is used to flavor McDonald's French fries. True story. If someone thought this comment was in the wrong thread. Also, the more flavorful alternative to the often mentioned beaver glad excretion is wok musk. Vanilla flavors with just a hint of roasted captives for a nice smokiness. In 2011, the Vegetarian Resource Group wrote to 5 major companies that produce vanilla flavoring. The organization asked if these companies used castrum. The answer, according to the Federal Code of Regulations, they can't. That's because the FDA highly regulates what goes into vanilla flavoring and extracts. Castrum extract can be used to enhance raspberry or strawberry flavorings, though it has also been used as traditional medicine for centuries. The beaver population in Sweden was almost wiped out in the 19th century because of castrum's popularity, according to Sweden's English newspaper, The Local. https://www.google.com/app/s/www.buzzinainsider.com/castrum used in food and perfume 2013 10% 3 FAMP. I see. They have a system that catches renderings from the chicken. Guess what? That's how gravy is made. Good gravy at least. At home when we cook a roast or turkey, we catch on the bottom of the pan some of the rendered flavors and this becomes gravy base. Most of the fat is removed to leave only the concentrated flavor or drippings. This in fact is classical cooking where fine dining is done whether it's in a professional or home setting. Sauces are considered the basis of fine food and the basis of many sauces is the pan drippings.